in the last video we have completed our signing flow, and in order to get this working we have been using Firebase authentication. So on the sign-in page we use it to call sign in anonymously, and on the home page we use it to call sign out, and on the landing page we use it to call current user when the application starts. So in all these three cases, we need to get access to Firebase authentication in order to make these calls. And the way we do that is by calling Firebase auth.instance. Earlier on, we have seen that this is a pattern known as the singleton pattern. So at this point, I think it's a good time to take a break from the code and talk about a bit of theory. This way, we can set the stage for the next changes that we are going to make in our application. Okay, so in software development, the singleton pattern is often used to provide an answer to a question that is very common. And that question is, how do we get access to stuff? And by stuff, I mean any service that could be useful in our application. So things like an authentication service, or a database, or secure storage, or file system. So anything like that. Okay, so now that we have defined what do we mean by stuff, how do we get access to it? And in this course, we are going to look at three different ways to go about this. So the first one we have already seen, it's called global access, and this is what we use when we make use of singletons. Then we have dependency injection, which is something that we are going to see next. And finally, we have scoped access, which is a technique that is used very often in Flutter, and we will learn about this as well in this course. And one thing that I want to make clear is that we will be comparing these techniques and learn about their advantages and disadvantages. So one of the goals of this course is to give you a good overview of these techniques so that they are available to you and you can use them as needed. And to describe these techniques, we are going to use the application that we have already built up to this point. So the first step is to review global access once again, which is the technique that we have used so far. So let's use our sign-in page that we have already built as an example. So we started off by creating the sign-in page as a stateless widget, and when we added the authentication code, we created a method to sign in anonymously. Then we made a call to firebase auth.instance.signin anonymously to get a Firebase user. And then we passed that user to the parent widget by calling the onSignin callback. And we also added a try and catch block to capture any errors. And because we are using Firebase authentication directly in this page, it is necessary to import it with the Firebase authentication package. Okay, so let's review how global access has been working for us. First of all, we had to write very little code to make our authentication calls, and this is something that we're happy about. But on the other hand, accessing Firebase auth via a singleton introduces tight coupling in our codebase. And what I mean by that is that the authentication code that we have written lives directly inside the sign-in page, and the same is true for the landing page and the home page. So in the future, if we wanted another service other than Firebase authentication, we would have to find all the places in our code where this is used and replace it. And also, it is hard to write tests for this code. In fact, at the moment there is no way that we could write a test to check that when the sign-in button is pressed, then the sign-in anonymously method is called. So singletons are quite easy to use, but they come with a number of drawbacks. And the same considerations that I've just made for the sign-in page also apply to the landing page and the home page as well. Okay, so in summary, there is one fundamental problem with global access, and that is that all the widgets in our code are asking for access to Firebase auth. And this is a good time to talk about an alternative approach, which is called dependency injection. And the idea with dependency injection is that our widgets no longer ask for access to Firebase authentication, but instead we tell them what they need. So as a next step, we are going to find a way to pass an authentication dependency to our widgets, and as part of this, we will also define a new authentication class, and that will be used as a wrapper for Firebase auth. So in summary, what we are going to do next is to wrap all our Firebase authentication code inside a new class called auth, and then we're going to inject an instance of this class to the constructors of our widget. This is so that we no longer need to use Firebase authentication directly inside our widgets. So once again, we are about to introduce dependency injection to our code, and I think this is something that is worth knowing about because it's an approach that works well in some cases. But just as a reminder, later on we will introduce scoped access as well, and we will see how that works. Okay, so we can now get back to our code and we can continue on the next video.